All right, against my better judgment, I'd like to bring in Karl Rove to start up this hour. I'm kidding. He's Fox News contributor, served as senior advisor, deputy chief of staff at George W. Bush. And great to see you, Karl.
You know, that wounded me, that comment.
It hurt you, because I'm just kidding.
Here I am organizing events for you in Texas to sell your new Sam Houston book, and this is how you repay me on national news.
Unbelievable.
Our Fox News alert is yesterday, the President of the United States, about this time yesterday morning, announced that the world's most wanted terrorist, al-Baghdadi, is dead. A daring raid under the cover of darkness. 8 choppers. We went in. We flew across Russian, Turkish, and Iraqi airspace. We called them all up, said, don't shoot us down. They didn't. We got that guy. The significance.
Well, he is the world's most wanted man, and he has been at the lead of this organization since he founded in 1999 as an affiliate of al-Qaeda. And this was a very important moment. Bernard Lewis, who just died last year, had a great insight into the Middle East, a great scholar of the region. He said the most important thing is who is the strong horse. And yesterday we learned that the United States is still the strongest horse in the Middle East by being able to kill this man who had escaped detection and escaped we and our allies in the region for years. But let's not kid ourselves. He is the head of. They took a lesson from the death of Osama bin Laden and decentralized the organization, moved their finances and their leadership and dispersed it, tried to become a more decentralized organization. In August, they named his successor, Muhammad Gardash. And so they've already got the guy in place who's going to succeed him. This is a very important fight, very important battle, very important victory. But now we need to take all that information they found in the compound, use it to go to whomever else we can get, and continue to keep.
So the caliphate may be gone, but ISIS lives on.
Right. I mean, they operate in 18 countries. Guess how big their budget is that we estimate, intelligence estimates. $1 billion a year is what they've got to spend.
Where's that money come from? It used to come from oil.
Well, and that's why the president was absolutely right to say we're going to keep our presence in Syria to guard the oil fields, because that was one of the ways what they would do is they'd run these oil wells in not particularly professional fashion, but load it up in trucks and then take it through the black market and sell it. So that was a big source of income.
They actually knock off banks, and they've gotten a lot of gold. And
that's right. And they kidnap people, treat them nice, and get a ransom. So, but they operate, and then they also extort money in the regions in which they operate.
It's amazing. All right, the president had a press conference, about a 50-minute press conference, and took questions. This is the strong language he used to describe the takedown. Listen.
Abu Bakr al-Baghdadi is dead. Baghdadi was vicious and violent, and he died in a vicious and violent way. He was a sick and depraved man, and now he's gone. Baghdadi and the losers who worked for him, and losers they are, they had no idea what they were getting into. He died like a dog. He died like a coward. The world is now a much safer place.
Talked about almost took a page from Angels with Dirty Faces when they asked James Cagney to cry at the end to be a bad example to those wayward kids. He wanted to make sure they know the terrorist that you look up to this guy, he died whimpering.
Well, his description is good to describe who this guy is to the people in the West, to remind us of the evil that they represent. On the other hand, the most important thing was we killed him. I mean, they aren't going to pay much attention. The terrorists are not going to pay much attention to the president's words, but they pay a lot of attention to America's actions. And the death of Baghdadi has got to shake that organization from top to bottom. And if we follow up on the intelligence, if there was good material there, good pocket litter.
2 hours we were there.
Yeah, and they collected a lot of stuff. It was like after Osama bin Laden's death. We collected a lot of material, and there were other actions that took place in the months that followed. And so, but the most important thing was not what the president said, but what the president ordered to be done, and in terms of ISIS itself. And boy, it was a great action.
But Karl, you have heard this president has taken criticism from his critics about the kind of language he used, talking about whimpering and dogs and stuff like that. Let's go back to when Barack Obama announced a similar statement, and notice how he uses some also active language.
The United States has conducted an operation that killed Osama bin Laden, the leader of al-Qaeda, and a terrorist who's responsible for the murder of thousands.
If these madmen ever got their hands on a nuclear bomb or nuclear material, they most certainly would use it.
They're thugs and killers, part of a cult of death.
So there's no magic to the phrase radical Islam. It's a political talking point. It's not a strategy.
Okay, so
that last part was the president pushing back on Republican.
Yeah, look, he was good until that moment.
Right.
But this is radical Islam. These are people who've hijacked a great religion.
Salafist Sunnis.
Yeah, exactly. And they stand in opposition to the vast majority of Muslims around the world, and they want to pervert a great religion in furtherance of their Islamic terrorist philosophy, and one of violence and extremism. And I think President Trump was correct in what he said. President Obama was correct in what he said up to that last part. And President Bush was correct in depicting them as evildoers and as basically thugs and crooks.
Well, you just set up the next soundbite. Watch this.
The Battle of Iraq is one victory in a war on terror that began on September the 11th, 2001. Those driven by the values of tyranny and extremism, the right of a self-appointed few to impose their fanatical views on all the rest. We'll keep the pressures on these radicals and extremists, and that is why we'll succeed. States like these and their terrorist allies constitute an axis of evil, arming to threaten the peace of the world.
Yeah, the axis of evil remark got sort of the left in America just sort of hyperventilating. How dare you suggest? How dare you suggest? Well, not David Frum. It was actually a group of people, who came up with the phrase. But the idea that North Korea and Iran and the Islamic terrorists were an axis of evil was like, oh my God, how dare you say that they're evil? But they are evil. These are.
It was accurate.
It was accurate.
It was Iraq, Iran, and North Korea.
Right, that's right.
So Joe Biden sat down with Norah O'Donnell in 60 Minutes. I was watching it last night. Joe Biden and his wife had this interview, and she asked him about Hunter Biden, and he doubled down. Listen to this.
Hunter said the only thing you said to him was, quote, I hope you know what you're doing.
That's exactly right. He's a grown man. What I meant by that is, I hope you thought this through. I hope you know exactly what you're doing here.
Meaning what?
That's all I meant. Nothing more than that, because I've never discussed my business or their business, my sons or daughters, and I've never discussed them because they know where I have to do my job, and that's it, and they have to make their own judgments.
But you understand people say, Joe Biden, he's an experienced politician, statesman, knows the issues of Ukraine. Why didn't he just say to his son, this is one to take a pass on, it may not look good?
He was already on the board, and he's a grown man. And it turns out he did not do a single thing wrong.
What's your reaction to that?
Well, first of all, if he did nothing wrong, okay, fine. So you don't know anything about Ukraine. You don't know anything about energy. You're the son of the vice president. You get put on a board. You get paid $600,000 a year for attending 2 meetings a year. Okay, fine. If you say that's nothing wrong, then fine. You're a scam artist, and you can get that kind of a deal because you're the vice president's son. If you accept that there's nothing wrong with that, then the guy who did something wrong was the vice president of the United States, who, knowing his son was on the board of a suspect company, says to his compatriots inside the Obama administration, let me be in charge of the Ukrainian anti-corruption efforts. Knowing that my son is on the board of a suspect company, let me be in charge of it. So if Hunter did nothing wrong, then the one guy who did something wrong was the vice president of the United States, knowing that his son was in a stinky position like that, said, let me go over and lecture the Ukrainians on anti-corruption. And remember, he does that, and in December of 2015, the New York Times and the Wall Street Journal run articles quoting people inside Ukraine saying, you know what, we're anti-corruption experts. What is he doing? Yeah. Doesn't he understand?
What kind of example
so look, yeah, and then it's 3 months later that he goes back over and says, fire the prosecutor who was a no-good prosecutor, but seems completely blind to the image of his son is involved with a suspect company. And remember, his son isn't the only bad actor here. We got Devin Archer, who forms this group with Hunter Biden, who is a longtime associate. When they formed the group, he's a longtime associate of then Senator John Kerry of Massachusetts. By the time that they go on the board, John Kerry is the Secretary of State of the United States. They put those two men, Burisma put those two men on the board for one reason only, to say to the central authorities in Kiev, we got juice with Washington. Look at us. We got a board member who's the son of the vice president and the bag man for John Kerry.
Kerry's son resigned, right?
Yeah, Kerry's stepson, Christopher Hines, says, this is stinky. I'm out of here.
Where's the curiosity on the part of the mainstream media regarding this story? If Joe Biden were a Republican,
look, every time
it would be the biggest story in the world.
I picked up so many articles that say, well, there's been no proof of any of the allegations of impropriety against Hunter and Joe Biden. Look, This was a stinky company. The United States knew it. And I've asked a question of a senior official of the Obama administration as to, did you know about this? And she refused to answer. They themselves knew this was stinky, but no one had the courage to go in and say to the president, better tell your vice president not to be in charge of that. Or nobody had the ability to go in and say to Biden, hey, this is a problem for us.
Carl, I'll add something else. He said he never spoke to his son about it, but he spoke to his son about it.
Yeah,
so
exactly.
What is it telling
Exactly.
you? And where is the golf picture of Devin Archer, Hunter Biden, and Joe Biden playing golf? What do you mean you don't know anything about it?
All we
Did
need
that
is,
come up in your foursome?
All we need is Zelensky, the head of Burisma, to be part of the foursome.
Right. But nothing went wrong.
No, nothing wrong. I mean, that interview, you know, we've got something in common here. Rather than watching baseball, we're watching 60 Minutes. But
I watch baseball.
That interview is that is only one of the jaw-dropping moments in that interview, and I couldn't believe it watching him sit there. My son did nothing wrong in taking all this money. But okay, fine. If he didn't do anything wrong, you did something wrong.
Right.
Right. He had to deconflict.
I mean, if my daughter had a big position, was making that kind of money, we would have conversations about it, I'm sure.
Right.
It's your child.
Yeah.
Other than, I hope you know what you're doing.
Right.
Carl, we know you know what you're doing. That's why we invited you on the couch.
Thank you. I'm so honored to be here.
It's great to have you on the couch.